Good morning, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Ask the Expert Show. I am your host, Gary Cassady, and I've got a very special guest today. His name is Robby Almogabar. I hope I didn't butcher that too bad, Robby. So I'm going to bring Robby on. Robby, how are you doing, sir?
Hey there, doing well. Good to see you, Gary.
Good. Welcome. Thank you for joining the show today.
I'm honored to be here.
All the way from Houston, Texas.
That's right, little city. Little city down here in Texas.
A little city?
Yeah.
About the size of the state of Ohio, isn't it?
Right, it's big.
It's big, yeah. So now have you always been in Houston, Robby, or?
Yeah, we were just talking about that with my family the other night. We're actually, so I'm a second generation here in Houston.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't left. Second generation.
Second generation. That's awesome. So now, I've got to admit, like, Robby, when I first met you, we were doing insurance, I believe.
Right.
At that time. It's been a few years back, I believe, on that. So.
Yeah, it's like maybe 2009, I believe, is when 2009, 2010. So almost over 10 years ago.
Wow, man, that is crazy. It's been that long. I can't believe that. So.
Those are struggling years.
The struggling years.
But it got us out. It helped us. Yeah.
But well, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background. Obviously, you're not in the insurance world anymore. You're actually doing some real estate stuff now. Is that correct?
Yes. So I started my career in '98. Got my real estate license in '98, and because I wasn't, struggled a little bit my first 3 years, so I ended up going into new home sales and did that for another 10 years at least. I was in new home sales for about 13 years, and but in the market changed a little bit. So in between there, I actually did some insurance sales. I think after the housing market fall of 2008 really changed what we were doing here. It's all I knew. So I had to do something different. That's how I got into insurance. And insurance actually got me out of where I was at, because there was a low point for us. I think when we met, maybe 6 or 7 months prior to meeting, we didn't know where rent or our mortgage, how we're going to pay it, how we're going to pay our cars, that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. You guys almost went homeless or something, if I kind of recall. Like, I remember a little story about that.
Yeah, so there we had received a foreclosure notice on our property, and before then, not a lot of people knew about it, about this foreclosure. And my wife and I, we can, I love Teresa. Teresa's, just one of the, she's a great person, and she could, we could live in a tent if we had to. But when we did get that foreclosure notice, I did notice her face change a little bit worrisome. Like, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And so, what we did is we just got spiritually naked with our friends and family. We were having Bible studies at our house, and, back then, before all this happened, we were trying to impress people, I guess.
Yeah.
Wearing suits and nice stuff. And, we're the type of people that, if you met us at church or something and you shake their hand, hey, how you doing? Great. Really, but I'm inside, I'm broke, I'm hurting, don't know what I'm going to do. And finally I told Teresa, I'm tired of living that way. Let's just be real with people, tell them what's going on. And we did. We got with our prayer group and said, look, we're broke. We may not be able to meet in this house in the future because we don't know how we're going to pay our bills. But later, did prayer, and about 2 weeks later, we were able to actually meet up with a company, insurance company, and met some great people there. I love those people. They're friends and family, now. Yeah. They were able to work with us and get us to a point where, and when I say we didn't know where our mortgage was going to be, Gary, there was times when, and I remember one time we had like less than $37 in the bank, and it's the beginning of the month.
Wow.
But, we surrounded ourselves with people who were doing well, and who kind of knew our situation. We explained them. They put a plan together, and they got it.
So. Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that, Robby, because most people, they're too embarrassed to talk about that. And with you sharing that story, the listeners, that are listening, that are probably in similar situations, and that will help them. I remember when I first started speaking on stages, and I told a story that I had a learning disability, and that I wasn't very good in school, and my father was in prison, and it was like an eye opening for me. I hid it for a long time because I didn't want people to think of certain things of me, right? And it was after meeting you and your faith and meeting other people and really just coming to realization, like, I'm actually helping these people by telling them my story, that it's okay, if you fail or whatever the case is, you can overcome, you'll still be alive.
Right.
So I appreciate you sharing that, because, a lot of people probably wouldn't share that just because they want to perceive that everything's okay. So I do really appreciate that. Yeah. Cool. So moving forward, though, I mean, you're doing really well in the real estate world. We had a conversation recently. You just bought your first investment property. Tell us about what's going on now in your life.
Well, so I work together with my wife, Teresa. So we have a real estate, we're the Almogabar team within Keller Williams. And we basically, we should have been working a long time ago, but there was a life event that took place. My dad ended up passing away, and I wasn't there for the day he passed away. I showed up late to the hospital. Everybody else got to be there, and I was thinking to myself, you know what? I mean, if I'd have said what I had been thinking all this time, which was to be in business with Teresa, I would have had that time to be there. But I was kept, I was enslaved by the fact that I was getting, $2,000 a month from this job, and it just kept me away. So anyway, that happened in 2014, and by the end of 2014, my dad, he passed away in July, I believe, and so the end of the year, by that November, Teresa and I were working together, and we just put our heads together. I don't know why it took that event to do it, but you know what? You're good at what you do. I'm good at what I do. Let's put our heads together and just work together as a team. And I know a lot of people sometimes, man, I don't ever want to work with my spouse. I love working with my spouse, but so we've been doing that for the last 6 years now. And, we've helped a lot of people purchase homes, and we've seen some deals go on the, we sell, and like, man, I wish I would have bought that property. And started reading up. I've actually watched some of your videos and seen how well you're doing on flipping and investing in properties, and that encouraged me. And then we just again, through prayer, we were able to meet somebody who it was a win-win situation for everybody. So we buying that property, and now we're getting ready to either rent it or flip. We'll decide which route here in a bit, but it is our first one, and we're
congratulations with that, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. So
and I've got to say, I think you called me a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, and you're like, man, I want to invest, and can you help me out? And we maybe lost connection or something, or whatever the situation was, and then you're still going, man. You're still moving. So that's awesome. You never give up on it. So.
Nope, not at all.
Now, I do have a question for you. So, my wife and I work together in our business, right? And at the very beginning, she was very reluctant of kind of joining on. I think one was she was afraid to give up the guaranteed check every week, right? Yeah. But then she's like, are we spending too much time together as a family, as a husband and wife? I love working with my wife. I mean, it just is probably the same as you. And, it's actually, I think it brought us a little bit closer, but there are sometimes I can't communicate very well with her on what I need done. And I think it's more me personally, it's something I just, I have a hard time communicating certain things. It's in my head, right? How do you and Teresa, come around those? I mean, because, how do you stop business and personal? How do you make it that way?
Well, you have to split the days up. You have to, we know that during, I saw a recording the other day by a guy named Ed Milet, and one of the things he spoke about was having 3 days in one day. Basically, 6 a.m. to 12, 12 to 6, and 6 to midnight. And it really, opened my eyes to thinking, man, okay, you got 3 days, because a lot of times we'll say, you know what are we doing today? Well, today we're working on this, and that's all day. But what if we broke it up and made it into a smaller segment, just for work or just for ourselves. Maybe I've got stuff to catch up on the first time, or maybe I want to go work out, and so I can't work out all day, but I can put it in one of the days, maybe the 6 to 12 part,
Yeah.
and that is something that we're working on too, because there are times when the kids know what we're doing, so everybody is on board. When we did this, we were afraid, like, well, what are we going to do? It's all commission based.
Yep.
But we said, you know what? We pray about everything. So God, I'm going to fall back and just trust that you're going to catch us. We're going to do the work. We're going to pray as it's up to you, and work as if it's up to us.
Yeah.
So, and that's really what we've done. But everybody, the whole family knows what we're doing and why we're doing it. Part of it's, y'all have college coming up. Y'all have, we in real estate, I don't have a 401k. I could set one up, I guess. But we don't really have, when we're self-employed, you're in charge of that. So that's where the investments came in. Maybe let's go ahead and do this so I can set y'all up for later. And it's good to leave an inheritance to your children, and that's biblical. So, so that's what we're working. So they know what the mission is. But there are times they know when, hey, it's work time, and then we know when it's play time. So, and it's something that's one of the hardest things with self-employed businesses is that sometimes you'll take phone calls after 7 or, even at the dinner table, which we had to learn years back. Okay, no more phones at the dinner table. Now, some people say, I wouldn't even do that anyway. But sometimes when you see the phone going, oh, that's a client. Ooh, I know what you're doing, but hey, you know what? if they were sick and they had to call a doctor, the doctor's not going to answer. You leave a message, they'll call back.
That is so true.
Everybody's on board to answer that question.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah. When my wife and I first met, and she never really understood maybe the self-employed part of it. And I had an agency before I even met you, had 60 some insurance agents. And I'm, constantly, I was on my phone, even at I'd have to walk away at the dinner table to take some phone calls. And at the very beginning, I was pretty young. I thought for sure that's how you had to, how I always had to be accessible. Right. And my wife had a nickname for me. She kept calling me PB. For phone,
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So phone, yeah. I don't want to keep saying it, but yeah. And it kind of realizes me one day, I don't have to answer the phone 24/7. I could set times aside and not, be bothered by those, or those are my off times. If I was working a 9 to 5 at 5:05, if I wasn't at the store or whatever, I wouldn't be answering the phone. So I kind of got to that point. So but yeah. Can you hear my dogs?
They're going to
my dogs are going crazy at the moment. Thanks to COVID. So, but yeah. So, all right. Now, how does faith, kind of relay into your business world and being successful and so forth? I mean, because you're pretty successful now, and you've always been successful at ever since I've met you. But this, you've really become very, very strong in your faith recently. It seems like to me, or pretty long. In fact, you and Teresa, and I got to praise you guys on this. Is you guys have changed? One of the people that really changed my view on faith is you guys prayed for my family in a Panera Bread's in Dayton, Ohio. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Yeah.
That was one of the first times I ever had really anybody say, let's pray for you. And I got to be honest, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to accept it at that time. And it was after that is when I started kind of opening my eyes more and more to faith and people wanting to come up and pray for me. Because I was always kind of, I'll do it on my own type of scenario. Does that make sense?
Right.
But when you and Teresa literally prayed for my wife, particularly at that time, because in the element, I didn't know how to accept it. And until after that is when I really started opening my eyes because of that one moment. So I thank you for that. But how does that kind of relate to your business and so forth? How do you guys play that?
Well, that's, neat to see how God puts things together. And, that was just something that we did. I wasn't even thinking about the Panera Bread, but I knew that it had to be on our heart for some reason.
Yeah.
But with faith, I mean, so again, my faith hasn't always been where it's at, and it's still growing, continually growing. But the more I read, the more I hang around other people that are, have similar faith, then I learn from them as well. But ultimately, again, it's the same common goal. When we read the Bible, we know. I mean, that's the center of who we are. We wouldn't be together if it wasn't for that. And the fact that somebody took the time to share the gospel with me openly in a business situation, where I got to know Christ as my Lord and Savior. I guess from that example, we just kept it going. Now, as far as business, I mean, there's, the one thing that we want to do, we pray over all of our business, all of our transactions, and sometimes with the client, sometimes without.
Yeah.
It's not, I'm going to pick and choose, but sometimes you just have that feeling. But that's a major part. There's been many times, and really even before the real estate, where we got on our face on the floor, just planted down and said, God, we don't know how this is going to happen, how we're going to make this work. I know you said to give, we're going to give, and but I don't know how tomorrow is going to be taken care of. We pray the next day, miraculously, something happens. Like, wow, where did that come from? It's as either a gift or it's a piece of business that now, okay, that can only be through God, because it's the exact amount that we were just looking for. There's many of those circumstances. Of course, even with Teresa's cancer, 2 years ago, she had kidney cancer, and same thing. Immediately, instead of like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Man, we just fell on the floor and said, God, you got to get, we need you. We need you here. Yeah. And, even the guy that did the surgery, the doctor, he said, man, this is one of the largest, cases of cancer on the kidney that we're dealing with. And we said, it doesn't matter. You're prayed up. You're good. Just go for it. Teresa was in a good state of mind. She wasn't crying. There's that time when you send them back in the hospital and they go and then you cry because you're like, that's my baby. know. But again, God got us through that as well. So our faith in business, I mean, we're very protective of what we do. And so, we pray that we're going to work with clients who God appoints to us. We don't try to go chase things that may not be what he wants us to do. Yeah. There's certain aspects of the real estate business that we don't handle. And so we pass it off to people who are good at that. But our biggest thing is, we do have a niche that we're good at, and we just stay focused there. And we just pray that God continues to provide there. It's not just about, well, there's money coming in, but it's also, what can we do to change the world? How can we impact it? We want to give back. Yeah. And because I think if you just keep it, they say a blessing just comes to you, but through you and goes somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And so we want to be a blessing to other people. One of the big things that we've been able to do this year and last year is we have a ministry in Cuba, and somebody it's them that started it. But another pastor once told me, and said, find out where God's moving and get involved. And so there was a ministry in Cuba that we're able to help out with, and so that's where we're doing a lot of support there. Awesome. So they all kind of correlate together. But if you go into faith, I guess what it had to start with is, we had to figure out, what is it that we want to do and why do we want to do it? You have to know that. And so there was a book that I read. It's called The One Thing by Gary Keller. And Gary Keller, and it's called The One Thing because it's a play off of the movie City Slickers. So there's a character in City Slickers named Curly. Curly is this manly man and has just a lot of wisdom. And he's taking these city slickers who want to just try to be cowboys, and he's going to teach them about life. But as they're going on this trail, the three city slickers are just, complaining about their lives. They're complaining about, their unsuccessful marriage or their business or whatever was going on, or maybe their relationships. They're just complaining. And so Curly says, man, you just need the one thing. If you do the one thing, you're going to be all right. You're going to be successful. And And so there's a scene where Curly gets hurt, and Billy Crystal runs over to him and says, Curly, what's the one thing? He says, the one thing is, and then he dies. He passes away. So they never get the answer. Like, what is the one thing? And so we'll go back to the one thing here in a bit, but because I'm going to come back to that.
Yeah.
But there's an analogy in the book he uses. It's an iceberg. And he said, an iceberg, whenever you see it, there's some, people that go to, where it's cold, maybe Alaska or even, Antarctica or somewhere, or Arctica, there's these glaciers. And so people take tours to go see these glaciers. What they may not realize is that even though they're huge, they're only seeing about 9% of the iceberg.
That's
right?
crazy.
So it's floating in water, you're only seeing 9% of it. The other 80 or 91% is underwater, which is crazy. So as big as that part is, there's a bigger part.
That is crazy. If you sit and think about that, like 9%.
Yeah, it's huge. And so when it comes to, we're talking about faith, think about the iceberg that if it could talk, obviously they can't talk, but if it could talk, and one day it would say, I want to be the largest iceberg ever. Okay. Because for whatever reason it has. Okay. Well, that's the first step. It needs to know why. And then it has to do something. It has to do the work, right? So that's got priorities. So those priorities, what? Every day it's got to do one thing. That one thing is it has to grow. It has to get wet. It has to freeze, wet, freeze, wet, freeze. And then through time, it gets bigger and bigger. And then what we get to see is the actual productivity of all that work. Okay. We get to see the tip of the iceberg. Think about it with sports, Michael Jordan or, Kobe Bryant, all these famous people. What we're seeing, and they may be getting trophies, but we're only seeing maybe the 9% of what they decided to do a long time ago. They decided, like Michael Jordan, to read his story. He didn't just grow up and be a successful basketball player. I mean, he became one.
Yep.
But he had a lot of failures. But he decided in his mind, I am going to be the best that I can be. Now, his best happened to make him the best in the world. I keep saying who's better, LeBron or Kobe. Man, still in my mind, I think anybody in their prime facing Michael Jordan would have lost to him. But that's just my opinion.
Oh, that's your opinion?
Yeah, and a lot of other people's too, right? But the fact of the matter is that he decided he wanted to be the best he could be. And his best made him obviously, really good. Yep. So, but he did the work. We didn't get to see him when he was when he got kicked off his team, when he came back into the after a game and just kept practicing shots after shots after shots. We didn't get to see all that. We didn't get to see him being coached as an 8-year-old, 9-year-old. We didn't see all that. All we saw him was in his prime.
Yep.
And I think a lot of times, in business, we think, man, it always has to be like this. Like before, I had to look, like I was, $1 million. That was before we got spiritually naked. I've got to look successful. Now, you got to figure out why you want to be successful, get everybody in line, and then do the one thing. And the one thing is doing one thing every day that will help you with your why. And then eventually they will see that productivity. They'll see that portion of the iceberg. Sometimes in business, now, does it mean you have to get paid a lot of money to be successful? Not at all. There's people in the social work that may not get, millions of dollars, but they're making a huge difference. They're making an impact on people, or maybe it's a different business. So it's not necessarily related to money. Now, when it comes to sports and stuff like that, we see it related to money because, it's a commercial, it's a commercial type business. So our faith, we tell God, what is it that you want us, to do? And, I hope, Bible says to ask and, we'll be given, and it's not for material thing. We just want to be a difference maker. And so, our purpose, is to, we have several, maybe one for business, one for health, one for faith. And my business, I have business people that I work with, and I have a circle there. And then I have a circle of people for my faith, the other people that are also doing some of the things, and maybe they're at a place spiritually where I also want to be. So I'm always trying to, get better, and develop myself.
Yeah. Now, we kind of talked a little bit before we got on the, before we went live. But one thing that I always want to point out, one of the things that I've always looked at being successful is I do draw it out like as a pyramid, but it's mind, body, and spirit, and you got to have the great attitude to kind of control that, but like their spirit and so forth is the faith, right? And getting you had to be faithful to get out there and take the leap to start a business with, say, your wife, and get on board with it as well. So you mentioned that you've been reading a lot of books as well. Now you mentioned the one with the one thing from Gary, is it Gary Keller, was it?
Yeah, Gary Keller.
Okay. And I think you mentioned another book as well.
There was another one called The Hold, and it just happens to be, it's called Hold, and it's also by Gary Keller.
Okay.
But he takes there's a group of people, I think there's 8 or 9 people that, have success stories investing. And so what he's teaching you is how to hold, when to decide, how to, basically if you should hold or sell or, or if you're going to hold, here's what you're looking for. So it kind of gives you a formula.
Yeah. So where do you see yourself on the investment side of your real estate for your personal self? Where do you see that in a few years?
So
you're just buying your first one. So
yeah. So this is our first flip. We actually have another rental property, but this is our first one that we're considering flipping. Or our first goal is to have $1 million of net worth in real estate outside our own home.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there we would grow. And so our goal is to, to have that income coming in. And really the goal is to be able to help pay for my kids' college, and maybe set stuff up even for my grandkids.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, people are watching, just like you said, you were watching and I'm watching you, and vice versa. But, each and every one of us has someone watching us, maybe our kids, or a friend or family member. They're watching to see what you do. And, I know my kids are watching, and what I want them to see is that I'm putting them first, doing everything I can to help leave a legacy. And that's just in one aspect. Of course, you have your work, and your other things that you do with yourself, with your health and your faith. But in the business part, I want to see that I'm trying to set them up and their kids up.
Yeah. Awesome. So now you also mentioned to me that you kind of had a little bit of an aha moment on real estate investing. You kind of started looking at it a little bit differently. I don't know if you wanted to really talk about that or not, but tell us about that aha moment that you had to made you literally think of a different way of real estate investing and stuff.
Absolutely, because for the longest part, again, and I've got a lot of, there's Christina Franco out there that I'm here in Houston, and I've just watched on, and I see the success that you're having. But I wanted to get back in and learn, and I didn't want to spend years trying to learn this stuff. So I found a book, read it, and I was having a conversation with another guy in our office, and I was going over the math, and I said, you could double your money in about 2.5 years. I mean, you have to get if you know the rule of 72, divide that by 2 is 36. You got to get over 36% rate of return on your money. Where do you get that? And I had never seen that. And so I'm going over this book with him, and he said, man, what chapter is that in? I said, you know what? Holy crap. It's not even in the first chapter. It's in the preface of the book. But what I got out of that was, for the longest part, I'm thinking, well, if I get a rental property, and let's say it makes $200 a month on positive cash flow, then I see it as, okay, I bought this, maybe it's $160,000 or $180,000. We'll just use a $180,000 home. So I bought a $180,000 home, and now I'm making $200 positive cash flow on it. So am I making $2,400? Yes, but man, that's 24. How long would I have to do that to double $180,000?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of years, say 180, 2,400. What I didn't realize was, it's not about the money that I'm buying the home for. It's about the money that I'm putting into the home. So if
Yep.
I'm putting in maybe $30,000 of my money, or 20%, whatever that might be, let's call 36,000, putting $36,000 in there, and then I getting a rate of return. Maybe I'm getting, I don't know, maybe 5% rate of return on the rental, on the cash flow. But
Mhm.
then the tenants are also bringing the house down,
Bringing the mortgage down. Yep.
mortgage down, right? So that's some money there. That might be another 5%. So I'm still at 10%, but so how do I get my money back? Well, if the house appraises at 4.4%, which is a average deal in the city, in a major city, it might be a little bit more, but we're being conservative, just using a 4.4% rate of appreciation. That might be closer to $6,000 or $7,000 a year
Mhm.
on the money that I put in. Now that's probably anywhere that might be 20 to 25%, or
Yeah.
even higher than that. So if I take the 25% and the 10% over here, now I have 35% a rate of return on the money that I invested. And I'm like, Robbie, you've sold hundreds of homes, and I'm thinking, how many of these should I have kept for myself?
Yeah.
So anyway, the book is called Hold by Gary Keller, and in the first, I did an Excel sheet on just like, okay, so if I buy it at this price and this is what it's making, I now know how to spit those numbers out. And
Yeah.
it's crazy.
That's awesome though. I mean, it's perspective. I mean, you start looking at things a little bit differently, and you're educating yourself. And so, yeah. I mean, and just because you're a real estate agent doesn't mean you know how to invest. But then you started, like in your situation, you knew you wanted to, and then you started, educating yourself on it and asking questions and seeking out advice, and now you're starting to buy your own properties. So, which is amazing. Which is awesome to me. So.
Yeah.
And you got the right mindset to do that because of your why. You're wanting to get $1 million plus assets in real estate, help pay for colleges and so forth. So, and then that could be future income, or down the road when you pass it down for multiple generations. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. My family never did that. I was never raised to learn how to invest. I didn't even really know much about the stock market when I graduated high school, because we just didn't talk about it. My son's 9 years old now, and we're educating him on stock market plans. And he likes the game. Have you heard of Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki?
Oh yeah, the rat race.
He's got a game called Cash Flow.
Cash flow.
And they've got a kids version for Cash Flow, and he absolutely loves that. So. So it teaches him how stocks, and now he's wanting stocks and different investments, and he's looking for different businesses that he's wanting to start up. And so it's really got him thinking in a multiple different directions. So, yeah.
I love that. I think there's a quote, some I paraphrase. This is the book.
Okay.
But the I think one of the quotes was, use your earned money to earn unearned passive income.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Always. Yeah. And so you're making your money work for it again, and you're making more and more money off of that. So exactly. Absolutely. So, well, Robbie, I appreciate it being on the show. Is there any last words of wisdom before we jump off of here?
Wow. The last words of wisdom, surround yourself around people that are doing what you want to do. Don't worry about the naysayers. There's going to be people that are even close to you. They're probably come out at they're probably trying to be protective.
Yep.
Sometimes it's not always that they're trying to kill your dreams. It's just that maybe they tried at one time. And I'm using the word try because try doesn't exist. I think Robert Wallace once, said, take a pen and try to drop it. Try to drop it. Well, you can't, because if you tried, then you actually did drop it.
Yeah.
So there are people that try things, but they don't really do it. Right. So figure out why you want to do what you want to do. What's the result, and then go for it and do one thing every day to make that one thing happen, whether it be your faith. You know what? I just want to,
absolutely.
I just want to read one chapter in the Bible. Okay. One thing, read one page or one chapter, one something, right? For your health. You may have to get around people who are healthy and who are have what you want. Find out what they're doing. again, in savings or in investments or whatever it may be. Family time. There's some people that have some great family lives, and man, I hear stories. They went out and they did this, or they played games with their kids. They're just having a fun night, and it doesn't always involve having to go somewhere and spend money. Sometimes you can do it at home.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it may be, find out, take that one step. Don't be afraid. Go, yes. I mean, and if you are afraid, then pray about it, right? That's our thing. Because again, if you just remember anything from this conversation, there was a point where we thought, how are we going to do it? And I said, God, we're going to fall back and just trust that you're going to catch us.
Yeah.
I have to do the work necessary to, can't just catch me and not just stay home and not work. You got to work, but just trust that he's got your back.
Yeah. That's awesome. I don't have anything else to add on that, man. That's it. That's it. That's the legendary Robby Almogabar from Houston, Texas. So, hey guys, again, thank you for tuning in today. And hold on, Robby, just stay on the line there, okay? So, but guys, appreciate you tuning in. We've got a great episode coming up next week on an international investor. He's doing stuff like here in the United States and Dubai, all over the place. So tune in next Monday as well. We've got a very awesome speaker next week. So thanks again, guys. Thanks again, Robby, for being on the show.
You got it.